you've had 3 weeks to think about it already. And then you can really get on and start to think seriously about putting together the report, your initial report, and your elevator pitch. Okay. While we're waiting for other people maybe to arrive, are there any questions about the assignment anyone would like to ask? Okay, I'll make a start now. So, this module, this assignment is really asking you to think about successful investment in information technology and e-business. Okay? And according to Hunter and Westerman in their book, this is the real business of information technology. This is what information technology is for. And that goes back a long way, of course, because probably people invented counting and writing so that they could keep track of their sheep and cattle and trade and swap those sheep and cattle. So that the very basis of information or information technology comes out of the very early kind of business activities people did tens of thousands of years ago. Okay. So these days we can think about what you might do in a digital business. So some people are starting to use this phrase rather than e-business to emphasize the digital nature of the information. Okay, it doesn't seem so different necessarily, but in this slide, better we can see better line there. In this slide, going to the right, Shafi is distinguished between just having a web presence and then setting up some e-commerce, just selling stuff over the web, and then integrating that with other systems in the organization, and then finally becoming a digital business. So thinking about the services available, the scope of IT in the organization, the transformation and the strategy of the business, these boxes have been filled in to give an idea of the kind of journey a business would undertake to become a digital business, and how that change would impact on services, organisation, business transformation and strategy. Okay. Now, the reality in many organisations is a little bit less exciting and glamorous. That in many companies, if you ask staff or managers or executives not involved in technology, what do you think about the IT in your organisation? The answer may be a pretty negative one. So people may say, we're spending too much on IT. Projects, meaning IT projects, fail to deliver. IT, meaning the people in that part of the organisation, the IT department, doesn't have a customer focus. Maybe we should outsource. They're such a trouble to the business, we'd rather have them outside altogether. There are huge and unknown risks around IT, and I guess an obvious one people talk about and read about in the newspapers would be cyber security risks. There's a lack of trust between IT, those people in that department, and the rest of the business. And our CIO, our IT manager, IT director speaks a foreign language. Okay. So those are all some negative comments that people might make talking about the information technology and information technology departments. Okay. So is it true, for example, that that we're spending too much on information technology? From time to time, Gartner published some key metrics, and they look at how much is being spent per member of staff on IT in that organisation or sector. So they've aggregated a number of organisations' data, and the important thing really is that the amount you spend on IT varies hugely depending on the kind of sector. So traditional building or construction firms, relatively low expenditure, whereas banking and for financial services, a very high proportion spent on IT per employee. Now, the good thing about this data is it means an IT department can benchmark itself, can compare to the average in the sector. So that, if the accusation is we're spending too much, then it's good to know what other people are spending, and you can say, hey, we're spending no more than the average, or 10% more than the average, or 10% less than the average, So it's good to have the data. So that was by employee, and again the same data but presented in a different way. The percentage of the income of the company that's being spent on IT. So again, the sort of more traditional chemicals, energy, don't spend so much on IT. They've got other things that are pretty expensive. They spend their money on instead. Whereas the professional services, banking, a high proportion of their income or costs goes on IT. Okay. So that's interesting to benchmark and compare, and also to think what are the reasons why banking, insurance, even retail and wholesale are spending quite a fraction on IT compared to the sectors at the bottom of the list here. Okay. So this book by Hunter and Westerman talks about how the Chief Information Officer in an organisation can deal with those criticisms and negative comments. And the recommendation is to deal with them in 3 phases. And the first phase is to show that IT is actually value for money. Okay. It says, change your way of thinking to avoid the value traps, which I'll show on the next slide. Show that IT provides value for money. You can benchmark yourself against the rest of the sector, or find another way of saying, you know, this is not expensive. If it is expensive, we'll make sure you cut the costs and manage the costs. Or just find a way of presenting the data so that you can argue, no, we are providing value for money. So in this phase, the CIO is presenting themselves as the chief information officer, not the chief information officer, but emphasizing our IT is not expensive, it is value for money. Okay. Phase 2 is to link the IT to the business outcomes. How is it that the IT is improving the business performance? Can the rest of the business be persuaded to make investments in IT? So how can IT improve the business? So in this phase, the CIO is the Chief Improvement Officer. Okay. And then when you've done all that, you may go on to other roles. So some people have succeeded in making the CIO the basis for moving on to a CEO or maybe some other board position like the Chief Operating or the Chief Financial Officer. So there's value beyond the IT, so the CIO can say, my career isn't over. Because one aspect of this negativity, to be honest, is that sometimes the CIO doesn't get a lot of respect and is pushed out or eased out or whatever, moved on without recognition or reward for their efforts. Okay. So convincing everybody in the business you're doing a good job and getting a promotion out of it is quite a success, if you can do it. Okay. So part of this is about credibility, and there's this kind of anecdote, which probably happens in reality from time to time. You're giving a presentation. You're proposing a new system for a key business unit. You put all your efforts into the presentation, you give the talk, and people sit there politely, and at the end, nobody asks any questions. And what that suggests is they're really not interested. You know, they're so not interested, they don't want to find any more information, and you can be pretty sure that the answer is no, we don't want to invest in your new system. So it's a bit worrying. You know, you put all this effort in, and you thought you made a good case. No response. So you afterwards say to the head of that business unit, well, you know, what's going on? Why weren't there any questions? And the response is, well, you can't run your own business, so why should I let you run mine? Okay. And this is why you have to go through that phase of convincing everybody that IT is value for money, that IT projects do deliver, that it is a trusted part of the business. If people don't trust you, they're never going to let you interfere with their part of the business. So before the CIO or whoever can make successful pitches, they have to deliver projects as and when promised. They have to gather metrics which show the value of information technology. They have to make a case that the costs are lower or the same as the competitors or reasonable, and that's why this Gartner data is useful for that benchmarking activity. So the advice was to avoid the value traps. So here are the value traps. One is just to be complacent and say, our performance speaks for itself. No, the CIO has to promote the benefits of IT around the organisation. Well, of course, information technology costs money. You know, what do you expect? If you take that attitude, then you're saying, well, IT is just the cost of doing business. And then the rest of the organisation will say, okay, we'll have to do everything we can to manage down that cost. Right. So if IT is just a cost, then people will always be stealing your budget. So what you have to do is say, no, it's not a cost, it's adding value, it's enhancing, improving the business. And finally, the third visibility trap is to talk about the great technology that's being delivered. Most of the time, around the organisation, you're talking to people who don't know, don't care, don't understand technology. So you have to talk in their language, otherwise they'll think it's a foreign language over my head, not interested. So how is the IT improving the business? Okay. You might get tempted to make an excuse, well, it's not perfect, but what do you expect? IT is complex. And again, that's just giving people an excuse to say, well, why do we bother spending so much on this technology? If it's complicated, it goes wrong, it's not helping. And likewise, follow our rules, use our systems. We won't allow you to connect your laptop, use your mobile phone, make a use of applications that we haven't approved. Okay. Of course, those are things you might have to do in some situations, but if you're giving the answer no, then you're just undermining trust and collaborative working. And there's role traps as well. Sometimes people in IT say, oh well, the rest of the organisation is our customer. And if you think about it, that's just another way of saying IT is a cost to the business. You know, the rest of the business buys the technology, pays the CIO salary. You know, you're our customer. We're serving you, but the implication is then you're not serving the real customers of the business, who are actually the ones who are providing the income and the profit that the business generates. So the customer for IT is the customer for the business as a whole. IT shouldn't fall into the trap of thinking the rest of the business is its customer. And likewise, the customer's always right. You can't say no all the time, but you can't say yes all the time. You have to negotiate what is sensible to provide and how should it be provided in a sensible and cost-effective way. So these are some of the value tracks that the book talks about. So our performance speaks for itself is one of these sort of dangerous states of mind, because when people think about IT, they tend to focus on what affects them most, and particularly on problems. It's a psychological phenomenon called negativity bias. When something's gone wrong, it kind of has a bigger impact on you and your memory and your emotions than if something goes right. So the IT might be working 99% of the time fine, but if it goes wrong and it has a really big impact, then people remember the thing that went wrong. So you have to constantly measure and publicize the performance, express the performance in business terms. How long did it take to resolve problems? What was the cost? How does that compare with the benchmark? What do the data tell us about the usage of systems, the satisfaction of users? What areas of the business are supported? What business has come in through, for example, our website in terms of new contacts or business volume, and how many queries were resolved through that rather than other means. So we talked about benchmarking, and then that should enable the CIO to quantify the improvement to the business that all this IT has made. So IT is not a cost, it generates business and profit. And that's the important message. So what profit is attributable to the new systems and processes? And if the CIO can answer that and persuade the rest of the business that these are credible statements, then people's attitude will begin to change. And we can see this if we imagine a gym, and they're trying to advertise what a good gym they are, and they want more people to come and exercise in the gym. Which of these would be more successful? Would you talk about, in our gym, these are the number of hours each machine is used, the number of calories, the muscles groups exercised by those machines? Or would you talk about the total weight loss by people using the gym? How much of the weight loss target has been achieved? How people can run 100 meters more quickly, and just how cool the gym users look after they've done all this exercise. If you want to advertise your gym, surely you would do it with a picture of somebody looking fit. Okay. That's clear. And this is trying to contrast describing IT in terms of the technology, in terms of the machines, or in terms of the user-centric metric, the impact on the business. So I guess you understand what this is saying. All right. So you understand IT delivers great technology is the wrong message. Can you articulate the right message?
IT creates business and profit.
It's helping the business and profit. Yeah. Okay. So if you go back to the beginning of these slides, there's a statement which is IT adds business value. That's the message. We add value to the business. Maybe profit, maybe some other non-tangible, non-financial metric, but probably profit is the one which will have the most impact. How has IT added value, profit, satisfaction, sales volume, business contact, etc. That's how you promote IT within the organisation. So, given all that, then, if we're trying to persuade the organisation to invest in some IT initiative, then we need to be clear, what are we doing? Are we just trying to keep the business going, grow the business, transform the business? What are the benefits? Hard benefits, financial, soft or hard ones, financial, things we can easily measure, soft ones that are harder to measure. What's the impact on profit and loss account? So not just the extra income, but how the extra income exceeds the cost. Okay. You know, why would the business invest in anything unless the income exceeds the cost? So what are the criteria? Most organisations will focus on the financial attractiveness and the alignment with the business goals and improving IT efficiency impact. In that order. Okay. So the initiative you have to promote through its financial attractiveness and also in line with business goals and it's really helping to make our IT more efficient. Okay. And this is not so much for the proposal, but later on, when the initiative has been implemented, you must make sure those benefits are realised. And sometimes things aren't quite right to start with. So you may need to fine-tune the system in order to achieve the target return. And this is called value harvesting or benefit realisation. You know, you must monitor the new system to see how much return it is actually delivering and tweak things to make sure it does deliver the return as expected. Okay. All right. So here's an activity for you. And you may think, oh, we've done that before, but we didn't really do it, we talked about it. Okay. So, have a go thinking about, you know, a simple website to sell items. Estimate what that's going to cost. What are the costs? Work out, estimate each of those costs. What's going to be the biggest expense? How does the project account for staff time? And then write down the formula for the return on investment. And you've got a quarter of an hour, and that's fine. I can come round and help you when you get stuck. If you want to work on your own or repairs, that's fine. But actually make sure you write down, put in your computer the answers, because I do want to feel, yeah, you are able to do this.
E-business The council oversight our promoting.
大哥说的太清楚了。
business 项目。Amazon 算是eBay。
成本高。不用啊，他不是一句，就整一网站卖东西。
典型的吗？
就是给这样子，
那不就是亚马逊吗？
不是亚马逊本来就是的网购平台，所以这个他就给了个例子，我觉得应该是给那些传统比较传统的网站介绍的是差不多来提高他们。
不是，e-business 不是你说？
他说我知道，但是他说举个例子，就是但是你 Amazon 的话，就是对这方面设计比较细致，你就很难想出来。来提高他的那个。
sorry。那有啥？Sainsbury 这些KFC online order system。然后他说可能的项目的成本 ，what budget head should be used? Heading online system contribution. which 还有是。
因为他不是要一直看到后边
还有equipment，
看到后边到底有什么，就这个东西有。
你得买设备。
performance。
PC7 or computer or some micro machine. Which of these selected is the largest?
收入。
最花费最大的那就是系统建设吧。What should the What should the project account for staff? 怎样占用员工时间？Official organization。
像 ERP 那
种。对。
投资回报率，投资 return on。
它上面你看它那个解释，它那个 example。
不就是对呀，额外的花费。
他有一个选择，他拿那个 example 收的这不够一 business project，
就是卖东西，卖鞋的东西。
这个好像也不是内部的吧
？Promote
还是三方的，
就是说三方推销别的。
Give a formula for the ROI
这样是要不配回报率？
回报率。
就是你给回报率。
赚的钱
应该是赚钱。
他说的这个是基于就更仔细一点，基于 total project cost additional current expenses。
And the project income minus project cost and minus 减去前面两个。 这是它的回报率。
然后还要
再除以投资整个数，是吧？
income减去 cost， 再减去addition 这些东西，再除以它的那个 cost。
哎呀，
那你刚才说的
TFC 啊，
你想说的是什么？
在线点餐系统。
其实那个你要去麦当劳自动点菜
我说的是手机 app。
就是逛公园做的。
就麦当劳不是有
你们都睡得好吗？
没睡，快了。
什么邮件？
啊？今天啊？
你没收到邮件吗？他们都收到邮件了。
真是今天啊？
嗯。
PT。啊，收着了。那边在，就是提醒我，他办公室在这儿，然后他在见我。
他办公室在哪？
啊？
在哪栋楼
？32。
啊
？32楼。
32是哪栋楼啊？
他收到邮件了没？
收了。
32在哪？
那个interchange马路对面那个。
哦，就是那个 student service 那个地方，差不多图书馆旁边。
不是说的
靠
那个点。
那个。
小红房。
不是，是一栋大楼。
马路对面。
就是
67对面。
对，67对面。
另外一个是电子他们的那个实验室。
你是哎，你是2点是吧？
这么牛逼的一个楼。
就是咱们云做答辩那楼。
你们还有答辩？
云小组
答辩不是在这栋楼里面吗
？32啊，是32。是。
云答辩不是，云答辩在实验室那栋楼。
实验室。
这不是这栋楼。
不是在
没去过。
那就在这边上。
哎，他一上他的课，我都困得要命。
换不了这个。像那个
哪个？你用 WhatsApp 吗？还挺好用的啊，挺好用的。
但是就是怎么说？
下一个。还能打电话这个？可以打电话。多少钱？我去，这么牛逼啊！
就等于你微信打电话一样。
在国内可以吧？可以。
国内感觉不太可以，就是用的人不多。如果你用的人多，其实国内的人都是用微信，微信打电话就是一样的，其实我觉得差不了太多。我还没有。用个微信也是差不了。
iMessage 跟 WhatsApp 没啥区别。
就它是基于 Facebook。
WhatsApp 已经被 Facebook 收购了。
但是你不收购的话，就会有一个竞争对手，反正是竞争对手的第一个先买下来的。
买的还挺贵的。
还有一个。 来着？
Instagram
对 ，Instagram 也是买过来的。
被谁买的？
啊，被 Facebook 买过来的。也是买了。
还有一个。还有一个 Snapchat 是吧？Snapchat。而且
它有2个。你说这个，而且就是说，比如说做网站什么这种东西都是发展的。至少是比较良好。
而且讨论完就下课。
我为啥这么困呢？你这个是4代键盘的？我敲一下。
但是这个用法跟 Windows 的用法其实不太一样。它所有的 control 都变成那个什么？就是这样的。你比如说你用 Alt 或者 Control 的键都变成这个 Command。比如说你想切就是本来你是 Alt 加这个嘛，现在变成这个。然后
这键盘小，键盘。
如果你有 iPad 的话，但是你的电脑比较小，直接带过来，主要是我电脑太大了，不方便带，然后刚好就买了个键盘，方便看个 PPT 做个笔记也没啥东西。
这键盘什么键盘来着？
随便买的，4代的键盘贵的要死，一套买下来这个还贵。
你可以上面又可以绑手机，又可以水电的在键盘上用。
对，因为它是蓝牙的。
咱们正好的创意也不可以说
可以敲代码的。不是你这个上面做 Xcode 吗 ？Xcode 填代码。
这只是一个代码查看。它那些
编译环境没有。
不是它你所有要编译文本，可以编译文本呢都要花钱，还挺贵的。
10
几磅。
对啊。
有没有人用 Apple 的？
不知道呀。
就是 Apple 的那个，它的那个代码编译器好贵，要收钱的。
Xcode。
这比如说我们用那个 Microsoft 的那个东西叫什么来着
Visual Studio。
Visual Studio。
要收钱吗？在苹果上。可以在苹果上用 Visual Studio。
You've got for the expenses, cost of this project. Yeah.
什么
？Anything else?
Marketing, advertising.
Advertising. Yeah. Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Testing. Testing.
Testing.
它怎么会算？测试啊。不是，
I
这么分啊？
Yes.
对啊，不能这么分啊。
We might have some project cost, and then we've got a project cost. So I think testing is probably a sub-project, and it fits under
Web development.
yes, staff costs. Now, the staff might be people you employ anyway. And we have a phrase for accounting for the time of these people. And we've had a discussion about that phrase. Can anyone at the back remember the phrase you should use when you're talking about time and salaries of people you employed anyway? Well, it is person hours, yeah, and then there's their wages or their salaries. But the thing is, remember this, you were paying their salaries or wages anyway. Okay, so if you say, oh, I was using this much salary on this project, but you were paying that much salary anyway. So there's no project cost there because the salary hasn't changed. Okay. So the way that you do account for that is by talking about the lost opportunity cost. So these staff worked on this project, might have worked on something else, which is the lost opportunity, and there's also external or contract wages or salaries. Okay. Yeah. Any other expenditures?
When you do the lost opportunity cost, do you put just the entire salary?
Well, so this salary is would be what I get paid a year. Probably I'm not going to work on this for a year, so it would be some fraction of the salary or the wages based on some way of accounting for the actual time spent on that project. Yeah. So, we'd have to be hours times the hourly rate, or something like that, added up over all and the people, yeah. And possibly we would have some kind of licensing, maybe new software, maybe we have to license a domain name. Are there any other major project costs we haven't? Okay, which is going to be the biggest here? Okay, who would agree that staff costs would be the biggest expenditure? Okay, right, I think I agree. It's probably the number one expense. How do we account for staff time? We just talked about that. And the formula for the return is the change in profit over the project
cost.
笑啥呀？
那个大哥醒了，
meaning the
回答的非常正经，
annual
是没毛病，
profit,
没问
and
题，没
that's
问题。
equal to
Perfect.
the new income minus the extra annual or recurrent repeating costs over the project cost. And don't forget to turn it into a percentage. That makes a difference. Thank you. Yes.
In the upper part of the fraction, do you not take into account the ongoing costs that happen in the first year or something like that?
Yes, so the question is sort of where do you start? And remember you've got this timeline. You initiate the project and you roll it out. You sell your first insurance. That's where the project costs happen. And then you're in operation. And it's this 12 months really which is talking about the extra, the new income and the extra costs. The difficulty is the company account may operate on a different schedule. So the expenditure may fall across 2 company reporting years. Yeah.
So this isn't related to breaking even, or
Related to
breaking even to.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you could account for the total money, the cumulative profit. So there's a period where the profit is negative because it's all costs. You roll out the project, it brings in some income. At some point, it breaks even. Or people talk about the payback point or moment. Yeah, sure.
But return on investment is not really about that, correct?
Oh, okay. So you remember at the beginning, I said if you get £100, if you get £100,000, what would you do with it? Okay, and you might put it in a savings account, you might put it in shares, or do some other kind of investment. If you want to compare investments, you compare them based on the annual percentage return. So you put money in a savings account, you might get 1% or 5%. You put money in shares, you might get something negative, you hope for something positive, maybe 10%. So you compare investments based on their return, meaning this figure as a percentage. And that's what people mean by return on investment. The textbook by Keene is called Return on Investment, and it explains all this in detail. So this other thing, we've got these other phrases, break even or payback. And I did have a discussion with one of you about a different way people use to look at the return, and just to remind you, I'm not expecting you to calculate net present value. So if you don't know what it is, don't worry, you don't need to. Any more questions?
他说那个点。 要不要这个要不要喝？说要不要喝？啊？这哥们问的什么问题？
哎呀，没事儿，你就问问吧。